Proposal 1, which is the emergency manager law. The emergency manager law we did was a very good law, and it is making a positive difference in Michigan. It's currently suspended until the vote takes place. But what did that law do? We've had an emergency manager law going back to Governor Blanchard, going back for a couple decades. And the problem is it didn't solve two particular problems. One problem was it didn't have an early warning mechanism to say how do we work with schools or communities before they need an emergency manager, before there's a huge crisis. So it put in an early warning system so we can work with communities, and we've been able to help communities avoid ever getting in the position of needing an emergency manager because of this law. The second thing we did is actually make it so when a manager came in, they would have more capabilities and abilities to do their job, get done, and really transition the community back faster to the community running itself. Because in some cases, we could have an emergency manager in a place for several years because they weren't fully able to do the things to get to financial stability so they could move on. And that part's been working. And the other thing I think is really important is to put in perspective, how many communities are we talking about that actually have an emergency manager? Because it comes up a lot. But we have over 500 school districts. We have over 2,000 jurisdictions in our state. We have 8 communities and school districts in emergency status. 8. That's a fraction of 1%. But that fraction of 1%, these really are emergencies. There are real crises going on that have been building for a long time, and something needs to be done. And because of Public Act 4, the law that was passed, that I believe would be very helpful to retain, is we're now in the process of actually potentially exiting 3 of those communities. And the real key now is doing agreements with those communities to say how are they going to make sure they're doing good budgeting practices and good practices after we transition out so they don't fall backwards. So this is one of these cases without this act, the likelihood of communities or school districts looking at bankruptcy increases fairly significantly in my view. So I believe the emergency manager law is a very good law in terms of what it's been able to do and what it's done. 2 through 6 are all constitutional proposals. The first thing I'd say to you, as soon as you have something touching the Michigan Constitution, I hope you're really skeptical. And in fact, if you look at these proposals, they're largely special interests trying to go around the legislature to say they want to embed something special for them in the Michigan Constitution, which I think is terrible public policy. The second thing I'll tell you is if you look at them on an individual basis, each one of them is bad public policy in terms of creating more risk for taxpayers, U.S. consumers and ratepayers in some fashion. They're very negative things. And I'll be happy to go through any specific one, but generally they're all bad public policy in terms of, I'll give you a quick review. Proposal 2 could wipe out whole sections of the whole subsections of the Michigan Constitution and up to 170 laws that have been around for decades in some cases. Just wipe them off the books. So we would have chaos for several years in our state and most likely have increased cost of, in my view, more than $1 billion a year to taxpayers if Proposal 2 was to pass. Proposal 3 is the renewables. 25% by 25. I actually think the concept of potentially having more renewables could be a good one, but we currently have a law that says we're getting to 10% by 2015. I just think, shouldn't we wait and see how that's working and then just do another law? The fatal flaw of this proposal is they want to put it in the Michigan Constitution, which is a terrible idea. Because the only grounds you can do that is if you said you knew with certainty all the other variables. We don't have a federal energy policy. So by putting this in our Constitution, I describe it as it's like building a house, and we got some great contractor construction people here that can jump in on this one, but it's like building a house with a foundation of sand. So it's terrible public policy. Proposal 4 is the home health care proposal, which isn't really about home health care. It's about one union getting $6 million a year from, in many cases, people taking care of relatives and other people they know and taking precious dollars away from them that they could keep in their family unit. Proposal 5 is the 2/3 tax one. On the face of it, it may sound appealing. But if you actually read what it says, it talks about not for a tax increase, for any increase in rate or base. So the best illustration, if we have any small business people here, the way I like to describe it is if that would have been in Michigan's Constitution a couple years ago, we would still have the Michigan business tax today. Because quite often tax reductions involve tax reform, where you have to do some alternatives that are actually saving you money or better, but that would be an increase or rate or base that you could not do, even when you're bringing taxes down. And it would give special interest way too much power. And then finally, Proposal 6 is a personal one in favor of now, and I don't have a personal stake in it, it's just I go home every night seeing what new evil I've done in the world. Actually, I want to see the Ambassador Bridge keep going and be successful, because that is good for Michigan. But we need a second crossing, another crossing over the Detroit River. And the issue there is, it's just a wonderful opportunity. Have you ever voted for a bridge before? Has anyone here ever voted for the bridge? A bridge? And do you remember voting for the Sault Ste. Marie Bridge, the Blue Water Bridge, the Mackinac Bridge? And think about those bridges we actually paid for. This bridge, Canada is going to pay for this bridge with no liability to Michigan taxpayers. That is ironclad. That's a done deal. So here's a bridge that wouldn't cost any money, that's going to generate tens of thousands of trade jobs, 10,000 construction jobs. It will make a difference in communities like this because we can do federal road match with the Canadian investment to do road projects right here in this county. So it's a positive for every Michigander. And the simple fact why this is a big deal is there's one special interest, there's one billionaire that's making a whole lot of money at everyone's expense. And they want to keep making a lot of money. In fact, the records just came out that they spent over $5 million on Monday and Tuesday of this week to buy more TV. I'm sure you haven't seen any of the ads, right? So they spent another $5 million on Monday and Tuesday to buy more ads through the election. And the only thing I can tell you is about the Proposal 6 ads, the Yes on 6 ads, is the only accurate pieces of information to my knowledge is there is a bridge and it's in Michigan. So my overall summary in terms of, again, my own personal vote and my view on public policy is it's yes on one and no on the rest. But you need to make your own decisions, and I encourage you to look at this brochure and make your analysis.